Hey, rest assured, if you're a Ram fan, know that your team is smart, right? I get a feeling I've been ripped off. You can't go home again. Is Drew Lock as bad as everyone says? And remembering for just a short moment, Tommy Prothro. I'm Joe Terosian, and live from the Ram Cave, this is RamView, the May 17th, 2022 edition. So glad to be back. Sorry I missed yesterday. Affairs of State took precedent over the Affairs of State, had to take care of stuff and get stuff done so I can be here today. Busy days, but a lot of stuff happening. Maybe not a lot of stuff, but just interesting things happening as we get, again, inching closer and closer to the season. The Rams getting closer and closer to on-field workouts. We know they're pumping iron and getting in shape and getting evaluated right now, and a lot of stuff like that happening. But just as far as the movement and everything, not all of that is done. So a couple things I wanted to go over with. Again, staying within the division, the NFC West, before I get to the Rams, is we've talked about the Cardinals a lot, talked about the 49ers a lot. We've pretty much written off the Seahawks. But one thing I see that's happening quite a bit is everyone is just writing off Drew Lock. Now, I don't think Drew Lock has added any stats while he was in Denver to make you think that he's anything for the Rams to worry about. But I remember listening and hearing about Drew Lock a year ago. And then, of course, they went with Teddy Bridgewater because he was the safe bet and all that kind of stuff, whatever, with Denver. Didn't really work out, did it? But then Colin Cowherd, and I'm not slamming Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd is the most talented sports talk guy out there. I might not agree with everything he says. I think he's a little kiss butt a little too much. But he's brilliant. He's talented. And he turned the other way on Drew Lock. And it became very much, Drew Lock's no good, right? If Drew Lock was any good, he'd play. I get it. Look at all the talent Denver has. Drew Lock should have excelled. He didn't, so he's a bad quarterback. And now as Pete Carroll is trying to sell Drew Lock as the Seahawks quarterback, as I listen to different podcasts, I listen to different radio shows, I hear people talk, it's just ubiquitous all the way around. Everyone says Drew Lock sucks. Everyone says. And here's the thing. Everyone wasn't saying that quite so much a year ago, but now everyone has made it an absolute. And I'm getting the feeling two things here. One is because Colin Cowherd is so powerful in the sports media, and he talks a lot of football. Again, he's really good. Is that they're just subscribing to his opinion because, believe it or not, sometimes sports people, besides having passion for sports, they also have a mañana attitude. And what I mean by the mañana attitude is I was growing up in El Monte, and mañana, we'll do it tomorrow. And sometimes sports writers are lazy. And people who do stuff like this are lazy. And it's like, well, Cowherd says it, so I'll just go along with it. I'll go read Rams Wire or look at something on the news, and I'll just go with that. And what's out there now is that Drew Lock is a horrible quarterback. And I think the Rams should beat the Seahawks twice next year. I don't think the Seahawks are going to be very good. And I don't think Drew Lock's a great quarterback. But I think he might be talented enough that you shouldn't write him off, all right? So I think the narrative on Drew Lock has become so across the board is because someone like as talented, again, I have to say it, he is, as Colin Cowherd is, because he said it. And I also think there's another thing here too, is that the second one is remember that if everybody is thinking the same thing, it means nobody is thinking. And we see that quite a bit in sport, that if everybody's thinking the same way, that means nobody is thinking. And so I would not put a star or some kind of a check mark next to Drew Lock that he's going to have some breakout season. But you know what? I might not want to write him off because the dude has a lot of physical talent, and the narrative might not be the truth. We know that to be the case often in our culture these days. Looking around the league, it's not too hard to get worked up about Jarvis Landry signing with the Saints. Why the Saints? Well, the Saints are a Rams opponent. Landry is good. Landry's not great. Landry to me is another version, although I like Robert Woods better. He's a lesser version of Robert Woods at this stage in his career. I think it's a good signing by the Saints, but when I'm looking at the Saints, they signed Tyrann Mathieu, and it's almost like they're trying to reach in, bring in these LSU guys and get a little goodwill in the community because, it's so soon, right after Katrina, they got to get that goodwill in the community going. And generally bringing guys in because they went to school locally really doesn't work. It's not a thing that's going to guarantee success, and sometimes those guys can get in the way. See the Rams and Pat Hayden. Pat Hayden was a solid NFL quarterback, but was he really a starter? But the second he got on the field, because of his USC roots and all he had done in that same stadium, the Coliseum, Pat Hayden got the benefit of the doubt probably longer than he should have. I think he was a fan favorite. I remember going to school and hearing guys saying, "Oh, Pat Hayden is so bad, man. Pat Hayden is this." And I was a James Harris fan, and it really upset me. But Hayden was a good quarterback. He wasn't a great quarterback, and he obviously wasn't good enough to get the Rams over the hump. They needed a less polished, stronger armed, more daring Vince Ferragamo to get them to the Super Bowl in '79, because if they did have Hayden at quarterback in '76, '77, '78, each time he came up short. It wasn't always his fault, but he came up short. If Hayden's at quarterback in '79, we don't beat Dallas in Dallas. We just don't. And then, of course, the Super Bowl, I don't know if we stay in it as long if Hayden's at quarterback as opposed to Vince Ferragamo. It made me think of players who come home again. I remember how excited everybody was. And I know I'm mentioning a name from the past. When everyone says Anthony Davis, they say, "Oh, yeah, Lakers suck." I'm not talking about Anthony Davis. That guy's name is Davis, and we call him Tony Davis, Mr. Davis, Sir Davis. I don't care what you call him. The real Anthony Davis is the guy that wore number 28 and played for USC. And everyone loved Anthony Davis, and he didn't have a great pro career. And as he was bouncing around, his last NFL stop was with the Rams in '78 when their backfield got depleted. And I remember just the energy, even on the sportscast. Did Anthony Davis get a carry? Did Anthony Davis get to play? And, I think he had 5 carries for the Rams, had a 4-yard run. And 8 months later, going into the '79 season, he was cut. And you can't go home. There was another USC receiver named Earl McCullough. He was like that. Somebody like Gary Jeter played at USC, went to the Giants. He had an effective return with the Rams. He wasn't great, but that going home and bringing somebody in for good feeling, and that's what I get the feeling when I see Landry and Matthew sign with the Saints. I think about how smart the Rams are in the sense that, have we suffered by getting rid of TJ McDonald? Remember when he was the Rams safety? Everyone liked him. He played the first year in 2016, and then we didn't re-sign him. And then on top of that, we made the move to get rid of Robert Woods. And that's going to yet to be seen, but we know it was a smart move. It was the move that had to be made. Emotionally, we didn't like it. But this Ram team's not going to be caught up in emotion. They're not going to take somebody and say, "Oh, he's a USC guy. Let's have it. We'll get good attendance." They're not thinking that way because they don't have to think that way. And that's really a smart way of thinking. Speaking of stuff where if everybody's thinking the same thing, then nobody's thinking. I got a little hot the other day, and I'm glad I didn't do a broadcast. If you remember in February, if you were with me in February, I was urging, please, Andrew Whitworth, retire. We're not going to get another year out of you at 41 like we've been getting out of you. Open that cap space. Let's get Joe Noteboom in there and re-signed. And I kept wanting him to retire, and finally he did. The cap space opened, and Noteboom got the contract, right? And one of the things that bothered me, well, it didn't bother me. It bothered me just the other day when I read it, was at that time I was saying, Whitworth can go the Eric Weddle route. He could be on the Eric Weddle list where we bring him back in late December or January, and he can be ready to play then. He can come back like that if we need him to come back. And then I just saw like a couple of articles. I think they were all shared. I saw them bouncing other places. Whitworth looking at possible return. And I'm thinking, wait a second, they ripped me off. I came up with that. I was talking about that. And that really hacked me. And I know I'm not unto myself on an island, that other people think too. But you know what? I was the one that was saying it. And now Ramswire and everyone else is taking credit for it. Sorry. I've had my stuff ripped off before. LA Times. LA Times. I won't say what LA Times did to me back in the day when I was working at the Mid. So yeah, I would welcome a Whitworth return if we need him, but I want to say I had that one first. Anyway, other things that are popping up in Ram talk is oh man, is Aaron Donald underrated or overrated? I don't care. Is OBJ going to sign with the Rams? Is he not sign? You know what? I like OBJ. I want him to sign, but I really don't want to talk about it. I don't care because in the end, he needs us more than we need him. All right. We, speaking in terms of Rams, he needs the Rams more than the Rams need him. I'm so sick of hearing about Tom Brady's contract. If he sucks, he sucks. They'll get rid of him. They got rid of Drew Brees. They'll get rid of these guys. And eventually I got to hear about, Sean McVay might bolt. Sean McVay might bolt. Let Sean McVay bolt. Okay, it hurts the Rams, it goes, but I just don't care. These are ridiculous discussions to have. I just don't care about these discussions. You know why? Because everybody's having these discussions. And if everybody's saying and thinking the same thing, then nobody's thinking. And I don't really care about the NFL power rankings. This isn't college football where you got to be ranked in the top 4 to get a playoff bid. I really don't care about what the rankings are. Where would the Rams would have been ranked during the 79 season and then reaching the Super Bowl? Where would they have been ranked in the 28 team NFL at that point, right? Where would some of these teams be ranked? I just don't care. Power rankings don't matter because you know why? It's played out on the field. And I really think people should just tone it down. And here's the other one that's really making me laugh. Am I supposed to care that St. Louis is upset or crying foul about the Rams coming back to Los Angeles? Poor St. Louis, right? Sorry, you made a deal with the devil, and she is the one who gave you a lousy franchise with one blip that turned into a Super Bowl. Be grateful for what you got. You made your deal with Georgia and John Shaw and all your city officials, and you got all that, and you weren't crying for LA back in 94, 95 when the Rams were getting ready to pull out and did pull out. You didn't care that how much they torched this team so they can get out of Dodge. You didn't care about any of that, but now we're supposed to care that, the Rams and the NFL were talking in 2013. Of course they were. And you in St. Louis shouldn't be upset about it because you're the ones that made the deal with the devil and you got burned. I could care less about how St. Louis feels and their emotions in regards to this. I still rooted for the Rams, but you know what? I don't care how a city feels. Everyone thought I was crazy for still rooting for the Rams. But you know what? They were still the Rams. And if you're still diehard Rams fans, root for the Rams. Or put something together and get a package and get a team in St. Louis to play football, right? You've lost 2 of them in less than 40 years. You lost the Cardinals and the Rams. You've got issues. They're your problems. And stop whining about the Rams coming to LA. There, said that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Rams have been to 5 Super Bowls, and they've had 4 seasons after, right? We don't know what this season's going to look like. We know it's going to be brutal with the schedule. Rams made it in 79. What did their season look like in 80? They won the Super Bowl in 99. What did it look like in 2000? Lost in 2001. What did it look like in 2002? Lost in 2018. What did it look like in 2019? A couple things. No serious string here, but just some interesting things to look at. How the Rams did in follow-up seasons to Super Bowl appearances. In 1980, they were actually still pretty good. They went 11-5. Struggled a little bit down the stretch. Struggled in games that they lost that they should have won. And they went 11-5. They made the wild card. They were a wild card team that year. Atlanta won the West. That was the world we lived in 1980. And Rams had to go back to Dallas. That's where they were in 79 when Ferragamo went to Billy the Quick Waddy for the touchdown and that great win that ended Roger Staubach's career, an absolute thing of beauty. And they went there, tied 13-13 at halftime, and ended up getting blown out. I think they lost 34-13. They lost the wild card game. After winning the Super Bowl in 1999, they went 10-6 and lost the wild card game into New Orleans. That was New Orleans' first playoff win, gifted. I think inside the red zone, was it inside the 30? Warner got picked off, and that ended the Rams' run as Super Bowl champs that year. And then in 2001, we know they made it to the Super Bowl, had stolen from them, I like to say. And they went 7-9. They didn't make the playoffs the next year. In 2019, they went to the Super Bowl. We know Next year, they went 9-7 and didn't make the playoffs. And then this other thing I thought was interesting is that Ferragamo led the team to the Super Bowl for the 79 season. But when the 1980 season opened, Pat Hayden was the starting quarterback. And he busted a thumb or finger, and he was out for 8 weeks. And Ferragamo took over and had his greatest season ever. And Hayden didn't get his job back, but there was a quarterback injury. In 2000, Kurt Warner had an injury, had a hand injury, and Trenton Green stepped in. In 2002, Warner had another injury, and this one proved mortal for him because it ended his time with the Rams. And Mark Bulger stepped in. And then in 2019, Goff didn't have an injury. But if you remember, that was the year, I know you remember, it's only a couple of years ago, that was the year the Rams moved off Roger Saffold. They moved off John Sullivan. They plugged in Bobby Evans, and it was just, the year was a disaster on the offensive line. Goff didn't have a good year, and Goff went from this quarterback, and I told you this before, go back and look at the 2018 season. Go back and look at the NFC Championship game in 2018 with January 2019. Look at that Super Bowl season where we beat the Chiefs 54-51 at the Coliseum, which was literally one of the greatest games ever played. Look how Goff was dealing and throwing with confidence. And in 2019, he was not the same quarterback, and he definitely wasn't the same quarterback in 2020, and the team had lost confidence in him. And so there were quarterback issues following each one of the Rams' Super Bowl appearances, wins and losses. And so what you need to consider is something that, again, I feel like I've been saying a lot of. I want him to do well. I like him. I appreciate him. But the Wolf, John Wolford, is John Wolford prepared to stop in? I mean, Hayden was lost for 2 months. Warner was lost for about 5-6 weeks in 2000. In 2002, he was lost for about 6 weeks. And if something were to happen to Stafford, again, we see a little trend here. Rams have never had a playoff victory after winning the Super Bowl or going to a Super Bowl, and they've missed the playoffs twice after going to the Super Bowl. And I think a lot of that had to do with some flux at quarterback. It's something to keep an eye on in terms of being a Ram fan going into this year. As we hit to the 18-minute mark, I want to wrap it up with this. But before I do, my name is Joe Tarosian. I am a sports writer and a pastor of a small church. My book, Tangent Dreams, came out about 6 years ago. It's having second life here. I want to say thank you for those that have purchased and are considering it. But yeah, you can find all my books on Amazon, and you can follow me at JoeT13B on Twitter, Instagram, and also joetarosian.com for my webpage, my website. There we go. All right, good. We got all that in? Good, we got all that in. All right, last thing I wanted to throw in here was I didn't get a chance to cover it because I don't do the show on Saturday. May 14th is the anniversary of Tommy Prothro's death. Tommy Prothro was a longtime college and pro head coach, and he passed away at the age of 74 in 1995 on May the 14th. And I would have talked about it if I'd done a show, but I didn't. Prothro was the Rams head coach for 2 years, 1971, 72. And those were years the Rams really struggled. They were the post-Allen years. They went from 9 wins in 70 to 8 to 6. And Prothero was gone. And in my house growing up, catching the Rams wave in my family, midway point of 72, all I heard was how bad Prothero was. And Prothero was crazy. And Prothero was somebody who would do different things. He'd punt early on third down sometimes. He'd run that single wing. He'd do these shifts. And you can see some of that on YouTube. Prothero, I'm not saying Prothero because of personality would have been a great head coach this day and age, but he was innovative. And because he was innovative, he might fit well in this day and age. And he had his own eccentricities and everything. But he was the Ram. He went 14-12-2 as a Ram head coach. And they missed the playoffs both years, narrowly, literally last day on both those days, they missed the playoffs. But here's an interesting, Prothro, as Rams HC, never lost to the 49ers. Never. He was 4-0 against the 49ers. He served as a head coach at Oregon State and UCLA. And later, after the Rams, he was kind of like foundational in stabling the Chargers ship before Don Coryell got there. And even prior to that, He was for 6 years, he was an offensive coordinator for Red Sanders at UCLA, ran a single wing, and they won a national title there at UCLA. Going to Oregon, he appeared and took his team to 2 Rose Bowls. Oregon State, I'm sorry. You don't see the Beavers do this too often, but they went to 2 Rose Bowls in his stint there. Terry Baker, who later became a Ram, earned a Heisman Trophy there in '62. Came to UCLA, was there for about 6 years, won a Rose Bowl, compiled a 63-37-2 record while at Oregon State, and a 41-18-3 record at UCLA. Both those places would kill for those numbers these days. And our thing is that we hated Prothro around my house because the Rams were losing, and I would hear the stories all the time, like, "Oh, Prothro sucks, Prothro sucks." And yeah, I guess Prothro did suck, but at that time, but we didn't know any better. And he's a forgotten character in the story of the game, and that might deserve a second look in terms of innovation and just being a little bit different. All the years he had those 2 seasons with the Rams, but all his years in college football, he only had 2 losing seasons. Struggled a little bit more with the Chargers, but we won't go into that. The Bolts are going to bolt, right? But just wanted to throw his name out there. Okay, folks, thank you so much for clicking on. Sorry I wasn't here yesterday, but I'm back, and you can find this on YouTube, and also be sure to check us out on Spotify. All right, take care. We'll talk to you soon.